Okay. I am running today and excited to do it. And of course, right when I went to log on, I'm only on Zoom like every hour of the day, and it said you needed to update your Zoom. And then I was logging on as Nancy, and then it sent a verification code to Nancy's email. So I'm like,
gosh.
so we're here 5 minutes late, and that is my fault. So I apologize. Thank you guys for being on. I am so excited to have Terrie and Debbie on to share with you guys today. They have made a huge impact in my life and all of my businesses, and so many other great leaders I know that they both coach. And so today we're going to talk about leadership. And can you guys see the screen and Debbie and Terrie? Okay. So I shouldn't spotlight Terrie. I don't know if they can, if that's going to take you away. Okay. As long as everybody can see them, then we're good to go. Stephanie and Nancy are shaking.
I don't know if I'll even show up. I don't care. If you can hear my voice, we're good.
They can see you on the side, they said. So that's perfect. Yep. We've got both of you. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here, and take it away.
Okay. Cool. All right.
Hey, well, everyone.
I'm Debbie. That's Terrie. No, we're excited to bring this to you. And the first question that I have for you guys, and you can just do a show of hands, whether it's virtual or just really showing me your hands, raising your hand. How many of you would consider yourself a leader?
Okay, that's more than the last room we were in.
It was more than the last room. So, okay, so we've got a more advanced room here. Yeah, the reason why I asked that is the most important person that you're ever going to lead is you. And you really can't lead others until you do you really well. And so we're gonna talk to you about the things that really matter in leadership, but it's going to be really more leading yourself. Okay, not that you can't use these with other individuals that you're leading. But this is really an inside view. So Terrie, I'll let you get things started.
Okay. So, I just want us to take a moment, just kind of slow ourselves down, because you guys are like coming off of appointments, coming out of meetings, coming out of trainings. And this is so critical. In fact, Dana, I know, heard it yesterday on the OP mastermind that she was inviting to. It is so critical that we wrap our arms around leadership right now. And the first place, like Debbie said, that we have to start is us. Nobody else on this Zoom, nobody else sitting in the room. We're going to start with you. And it all starts with self-awareness. So hopefully today, what we're going to help you discover is that there may be one area in your world of self-leadership that maybe you need to take a little bit of a test on, like challenge yourself on it. It's that you've got to know yourself, your strengths and your weaknesses before you can understand how to impact others. And yes, I just use the word weaknesses instead of opportunities, because there are areas in our life where we pay attention to one thing and then we don't pay attention to the other. So hopefully we can talk about growing yourself, because if you can't grow yourself first, you can't expect to grow the people around you. And everybody is growing someone. And just to quote our friend, John Maxwell, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So hopefully today will help you gain a little bit of understanding about how you process your world and how you're processing the people around you.
Cool.
So starting with you.
So we've got 8 areas that that Terrie and I really thought about, of that these are the areas that really matter, and they're really not in any order. And what I'm going to start with is I'm going to talk about values matter. What do I mean by values? Values are the things that are important to us. They determine how we live, and they determine how we actually evaluate the time that we spend. So if you, at the end of this, I hope that you would consider this, you appreciated the hour and the hour was good for you. And that would be an indication that you value learning, as an example. So primarily they're unconscious. Our values are unconscious, but they drive our motivation and our fulfillment. And they're at the core of why we do what we do. When we know our values, they allow us to kind of understand and know, what do I say yes to, and What allows me to get into action faster and get the results that I want in life? When we're in alignment with our values, we're happy. And by the way, your happiness is not on anybody else's job description. That's up to you. And when you're out of alignment, I mean, think about a time where either maybe it was a job that you had or something that you had, and you just went home at the end of the day and you were just drained, and you were really there just for time on task for the compensation that you got. There was really no joy or fulfillment. You could probably go back and look at that if you were aware of your values and realize the reason for your unhappiness and that taking so much energy and exhausting you was as a result of you being out of alignment with your values. So the challenge, because our values are at the deepest level of our programming and often unconscious, in other words, they're the programs that are running that we may be unaware of. So I want you to think about your phone. Oftentimes your phone is running apps in the background and you're not even sure that they're open, okay? Like, you know I turn off my locator thing. I just think it's weird that somebody knows where I'm at based on my phone, right? And yet I want you to just think about that. Sometimes there are things running in the background, but you're not really aware of them. And that's what your values are. So what's important is that we have to begin to explore what are our values. So the biggest question that you can ask ourselves, let's look at it in terms of career. Just simply asking yourself, what is important to me about career? And really doing a brain dump, okay? And identifying all of the things that are really important. And then prioritize those. And that will begin to help you kind of understand what your values are. Once you understand them and you know what they are, then you have to ask yourself, do I hire to them? Do you hire other people on your team that are in alignment with your values? How would you know? What's in your calendar will indicate what you value, because again, it's what we make time for. What are the things that energize you? Or what are the things that you choose to make financial investments in? All of those are clues and indications of what it is that we value. So the question to ask yourself here is, how do you bring your values to life at work and in your leadership?
And I'll just add to that real quick. If you've never done an actual values exercise with your coach, with Dana, with your leader, whoever you're in leadership with, if you've never done an actual exercise, please let us know.
We can help you with that.
It's really important to narrow down your top 3 to 5 values. So like Debbie said, when you're making decisions, even personal decisions, you're lining everything up with the values that you have.
Is there a quick way for them to, is that like a whole nother session? Or is there a quick way for them to figure out a couple of their values if they've never done that before?
You could probably do that. I don't know that we'll have time to do it today, but I'll give you the exercise that you can do with somebody. Okay. Get with somebody that's on this call. Okay. And one person is going to simply ask the question. The other person is going to give their answers. And the person that is asking the question, you're going to write down exactly what they say, and you're just going to make a list. And the question is going to be, what's important to you about career? And they just start saying things, and you just keep writing it down. And then you keep asking that same question. You're probably going to end up with a list of anywhere between 18 and 25 items. Okay. You'll know you're kind of done when all of a sudden the person keeps like repeating it. Don't think you asked that question one time and you're done, because that's what's going to come up consciously. Remember that this is in our programming. So we kind of have to quiet the conscious mind by getting everything out and kind of dumping it. And then you begin to identify the unconscious. Once you've done that, take that list and put it in order. Once you have the list in order, I would start with probably about value number 10, whatever's number 10, and ask yourself, if I have number 10, does it allow me to have number 9? And if I have number 9, does it allow me to have number 8? And so you're going to work your way up until you get all the way to the top value. Sometimes we have them a little bit out of order, and that's okay, but it will help you get them in the right order. And then once you've done that, ask yourself the question, if I have my number 1 value, will it allow me to have the rest of those values? That's how you know you've got them in the right order. Once you're aware of that, take your top 3 to 5 values and basically play a game with yourself for at least 30 days, because you want to bring the awareness to yourself. And the game is simply looking at your values every day and just saying, either starting the morning and say, my intention to live out this value today is X, and attach it to an action, attach it to an activity. Or if you're one that likes to reflect, simply at the end of the day, just simply take a look at your values and say, where did I live out my value today? Where might I have been out of alignment with my value? All you're doing in that 30-day period of time is you're just bringing that awareness of your values to it. It's really powerful. This is something that I do with anybody that I coach with, because I need to know their values, because when they're struggling and when they're hitting their head up against a wall, if I know their values, oftentimes I can say, here's the value that's out of alignment. Now let's get us back into alignment so that we can have the breakthrough that we need.
One more quick question, and then I know I know that we weren't supposed to really go deep on this, but if someone is like, I've never even heard about values before, would you two be willing to share like 1 or 2 of yours, just so they could get an idea of a word? Like,
yeah, one of my top values is autonomy. And so I need to have, that's not saying I can't work for somebody. I need you to understand that. And I need to have a level of, I need to have a level of, I get to decide the how. Okay. Yeah. That's important for me to have that. The other one is authenticity. Yeah. It's like if you and I were having dinner, I'm going to show up as the same person as I'm showing up on here.
Yep.
Well, so kind of.
Well, kind of. I might cuss more if we were at dinner. But
yeah, you might.
Other than that, Terrie, a couple of years.
Oh, top legacy, everything. And remember, these things can kind of shift around, like Debbie's talking about. Legacy is huge for me. Dana could tell you my whole story about that. Legacy.
Your wall behind her is all about legacy. In case I know you can't read it, but the pictures and the words and everything.
Everything is about it. And what's important to me, it's not about what I leave for people. I'm not accumulating wealth to leave things for people. I'm accumulating wealth and relationships with people so that I can leave something in them. Mm-hmm. So hopefully the next generation will carry out things I do, not spend what I do. Anyway, that's just a joke to that. And then collaboration is huge for me. Debbie knows you don't collaborate with me. We were talking about this just earlier this morning. You don't collaborate with me, I'm going off. Mm-hmm. It might get ugly. I need to be collaborative. So any of the market centers I have ownership partners with, anything I do, you better collaborate with me. Let's brainstorm, bounce this off of each other. Let me be a part of it. I'm going to be great. I'm a great collaborator and connector. So those are my top 2. My third is respect. I don't know if that one will ever go away in my life.
I wanted to answer Patty's question as far as, is it only focused on work? No, it's not. You've got every area of your life. So all 7 areas of your life, you could elicit values for that. What I will tell you, so I'll just use my 2 examples. If I was eliciting values in relationship, autonomy is still going to be there and authenticity is still going to be there, but they're going to look different. Okay. In other words, the autonomy, it's a different type of balance. So you might see the same value across different areas of your life. They might be expressed differently. And yet you could have totally different values in an area of your life, from, like, let's say financial to career, that might look different. So you can elicit values in every area. Okay. All right, Terrie, which legacy leads in perfectly to our next one.
To our next one, our story. Your story matters. You know, there might have been a day when I realized that I wasn't telling my story like I should, or I was ashamed to tell my story, but your story comes out when you deal with enough people. And the thing about your story matters for you is your story builds. like, now I'm 60 years into life and 40 years into a real estate career. I got a lot of story. And what's interesting as you get older is your story is affecting people that you may not even know that it's touching, right? And what's funny is it's so easy to see our past, but so hard to see our future, yet our future absolutely holds what is going to develop the next chapter in our story around. In fact, we have, I would say most of the people that I coach, and even myself raising my hand, we have a difficult time visualizing the future. I'll never forget the moment when I realized I finally could see 5 years out. And I realized that I could see it only because I was 4.5 years into it. If that makes sense, right? Because it's hard for us to be able to visualize, see, and dream about what we really want in our life. So we have to start with the now. Here's a really cool exercise that I think, as Debbie and I have taught this, it's been very impactful for the listeners. So I'm just going to ask you guys to close your eyes, maybe even, or just put your head down, whatever, just don't look at the screen. And I want you to think through these things I'm going to ask you. So get your age in mind. Just have it in your mind, whatever your age is. I just told you how old I was. Okay. Now I want you to take that age and add 10 years to it. And I want you to think about that age. Okay, not good or bad, just think about it. Mine's 70, right? Just makes you shake your head. Okay, so now I want you to think about, if you have children, take your children and their current age today and add 10 years onto their life. And I want you to visualize even maybe what will they look like at the age of 18, right? Some of you will be going, okay, I mean, my kids will be 33 and 43 and 44. Which kind of gives me shivers, right? Debbie's kind of in the same boat with me, and my grandchildren, my oldest one will be 17. So think about your children. How old will they be? Maybe your significant other. How old would they be? Now, I don't have the privilege of doing this anymore, but I still have fun with the numbers. The parents that you have, add 10 years onto their lives. How old will they be? What will your life need to look like 10 years from now, possibly caring for your parents, not just your grandchildren, your children anymore? Okay. Now you can look up or open your eyes, whatever you just did. And I want you to think about the impact that has on your future. And if I were to take you to go back 10 years ago, same thing. Think about your age now and where were you at 50 in my case? Right? Man, at 50, I was just realizing what life could really look like financially and what dreaming could really look like, because I didn't wake up until I was 46. Now, things that are contained in your story of your past are things that honestly can even create trauma in our life. They can create some PTSD, maybe. There's things that your past has created for you, which should be included in your story. And there will be a moment in time when you're able to include those things that are going to help you help someone else. It's a connector. It's a rapport builder. It's what help you enter their world as a human being. So as leaders, going back, Debbie used the word earlier, authenticity, and I'm going to throw in vulnerability. Your story may cause you to feel or need to feel vulnerable in some areas, but I'm just asking you to be open and aware of some things you might want to share. And it may be nothing drastic. It could be, I'm not a college graduate. You probably know that about a lot of people in your life. I didn't graduate college. I basically got 1 year under my belt, quit, and went into real estate. I think I'm okay. That doesn't make me who I am, right? There are failed relationships in my life. There have been battles with cancer in my life. I've watched battles with addiction in my life. I think we all have an addiction. I think that's the interesting thing. All of us have some sort of addiction or addictive behavior in our life. We all have failure. If we're not failing, we're not moving forward. Those are things we have to look at. How do I take those pieces of my life and learn to connect them to my health in the future, business adventures in the future, business partnerships in the future. Because honestly, you're going to attract this, you're going to attract people to the story you're telling. And the market centers that we live in, if we're not telling our stories at an extremely high level, you're fortunate to be in an organization that tells a lot of great stories and features a lot of great people a lot of times. That's what attracts people to you. So in your parenting and your spirituality, how are you connecting with people? What do people know about you? Where are you willing to be vulnerable? What about your story might you need to tell more of that maybe you're ashamed of? Maybe you need to talk to a coach or even a counselor about why you can't get past that story. Because we know that there's programming in all of our lives. And some of our programming tells us that the stories and the things that have happened in our past are bad and that we don't need to share that. But I can promise you there's a person standing next to you or sitting next to you at any given point in time that has dealt with what you've dealt with. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it all carries connectivity. So the question after you've added 10 years to your age now, what would you need to see, hear, or experience? So when you look in the mirror in 10 years, you can be proud and even be your own hero. So imagine looking at yourself in the mirror 10 years, that person you visualized earlier, you're looking at him in the mirror. Is that your hero 10 years from now?
All right, you can sit with that question for a while.
Sit on that, friends. Debbie's going to talk about one of my favorites.
Psychological safety matters. It's a word that we throw around sometimes, and yet what is it really? When we witness psychological safety, I will go back a slide. Yes, Stephanie.
I was going to say, can you see the chat? Okay.
Yeah, I did. I saw that pop up. So we witness psychological safety, not only in our behavior, but in our environment. And the environment is one that of vulnerability that allows us to feel included, allows us to feel safe to learn or to fail. Also safe to contribute. Can I contribute to this group? Do I feel safe or will I be made fun of? And it's also psychological safety in an environment is about it's safe to challenge the status quo without fear of being embarrassed or punished in some way. Can you push back, in other words? Now, psychological safety is based in respect and in permission. So what are the behaviors of psychological safety? As a leader, what do we need to be aware of? And the first one is we need to acknowledge our own personal limits. In other words, are you willing to admit when you don't know something and display a level of humility? The second behavior is witness your own mistakes. Do you acknowledge and allow people to witness your mistakes? Or do you try to cover them up? The third one is have some flexibility or openness. In other words, do you allow other people to influence you and acknowledge when it happens? Invite other voices in. And do you invite other voices into the conversation, or are you the only one ever talking? You have to begin to frame mistakes and failures as learning opportunities. And finally, the last behavior is you have to embrace adversity. In other words, look for the gifts and the opportunities that are often hidden in your organization. You know, sometimes somebody may be great at something and yet it's something that's hidden. Like, when's the last time that you asked somebody to maybe have them teach instead of you teach, as an example, right? We want to embrace adversity. It doesn't all have to look like we want it to look. What I can tell you is that the level of psychological safety on a team is in direct proportion to the health and the vitality of that team and to your leadership. Psychological safety is huge, and you've either got it or you don't. Mm-hmm. So the question to ask you here is, when you walk into a room or a meeting, do your people calm down, or do they shut up? Do they shut down?
Well, you know, Debbie, you and I see this often. Like, you can be sitting in a room on Zoom,
Yep.
and nobody contributes. And if you're like me, if an instructor's asking a question and nobody responds, you almost feel like you've got to respond so the instructor doesn't feel weird. And it's
Exactly.
not about the instructor. A lot of times it's about the psychological safety in the room.
Yep. That environment. And you can have psychological safety, by the way, on Zoom. You can.
Mm-hmm.
I've been on there. I've done it. And it may be a little bit more difficult because you can't necessarily connect to people in the same way. And it can definitely occur. All right, Terrie, I'll let you take the next one.
Growth plan. Is that where we're at? Yes.
Personal growth.
Personal growth. So, you know, you all have possibly done an exercise that helps you see where you are in all the key areas of your life, right? Spiritually, relationships, health, business, right? We could name all the 7 areas you've possibly done it. If not, write that down. I call that the wheel of life exercise. People call it different things, but just write that down. And if it's something you haven't done, I'm happy to send something to you for that. I know Dana's got that. And this can be done frequently. I would say even once a quarter, because the thing about personal growth, you know, you're growing personally when you're checking in on yourself to see, okay, this is what I saw 3 months ago when I possibly did my life wheel. Now, is that flat area in my life improving? Possibly you've done an emotional intelligence test. Debbie and I call it EQ, which we teach and instruct on emotional intelligence, which is very different than intellectual, right? Like the KPA monitors more. If you all have taken a KPA, it's monitoring more of your intellectual skill versus your emotional intelligence that you use to get a result as a leader. No leader can operate without understanding who they are. And emotional intelligence is an example, and honestly, what's going on in their personal world. We all know we bring our personal world into our energy and into our into the workforce and the people that we're around every day. In fact, I would challenge most of you, possibly because I'm pointing fingers at myself, is what I deal with during the day. I bring that probably to David, my husband, or if I'm with my grandchildren and kids, they probably feel it from me or they see it on me, right? We probably revert, we probably show up really, really well for our clients, and we possibly don't show up personally for our families and friends like we should. So an example for me is the area that tends to stay flat for me is my friendship. So in my wheel, my friendships area is not as flat as it once was, yet it is better than it once was because of awareness around it. When you're done with people all day long, the last thing you want to do is possibly go hang out and act like you're having fun. That's a problem too. And the challenge is that those people need you possibly more than you need them, and they will bring you up the minute you're around them. So the thing about that is, how do I plan for it? Well, number one, you need to be aware of where am I personally in my growth, where I need to create a growth plan around. So if you can think 5 years from now or 10 years from now, and you can use the I will statement. 5 years from now, I will fill in the blank. 10 years from now, I will. It's not just about goals, it's about purpose in life. So what do you need to do? What do you need to put on your growth plan? What classes do you need to attend? What kind of coaching do you need to have? What kind of trips do you need to go on to disconnect? I have a client that does an alone trip every year. She literally goes away for 5 days by herself. And it was one of the hardest things she ever did because she needed to see if she could do it. And now she does it every year, right? So that's part of her growth plan every year. So what are some of the things you're willing to learn based on where you are in life? And I'm not trying to give you a lot of assessments to go do. I'm just going to throw those out there at you. But What's your growth plan right now? Like, it could be a list of 10 things you know you need to be a part of, learn from. Debbie and I have been through some really tough courses with International Coaches Federation that it took us a good 6 months, if not a year, to get through. But it was what has helped put us where we are now in our journey with coaching. So what's your growth plan right now? Think about that.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and go into the next one. We've kind of hit on this a little bit, yet I'm going to, we've got it as a whole area, and that failure matters. How many of you, just a show of hands, have heard the phrase failure is not an option? Most of us have. Okay. Show of hands again, how many of you have failed? Apparently it's an option. Okay. It is an option. The question is, though, what's your relationship with it? See, the only time that we really fail is when we fail to learn. We fail to learn the lesson, or we fail to learn whatever that is. By the way, you'll repeat it if you don't learn it. I'm speaking from experience here. And as leaders, we need to be willing to try new things. We need to be willing to fail at something that others won't even try. Too often what happens is our relationship with failure is that we take it on as an identity. Ryan Leake has a great quote, my favorite quote around failure. He said, failure is an event, not an outfit. Stop wearing it. Because too often we wear failure. And it's not something that we wear. It's something that happened. And if you're a leader, and we all know we are, and so wherever you're a leader at, whether it's a leader at home, or you're just leading your clients, or you're leading a team, whatever that is, you need to create a failure-friendly environment. If you don't, your people will hide from you, and they will not be real with you. So having an environment in which failure is okay. If people are terrified to screw something up, you may not have the right environment that allows them to truly grow. So have an environment, a friendly, failure-friendly environment. Think about that for for those of you that are parents as well, or grandparents. Is it safe for them to fail? Is it safe for them to mess up? Or do we immediately go to, I'm so disappointed in you? So the question here, you've probably been asked this question multiple times, and yet it's one in which I think it's great to be able to look at. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Where's that place that you're willing to take a chance, that try something that somebody else is not even willing to try?
I have a question. I have two questions.
Yeah.
And if you guys have questions, type them in the chat. We can fill them for sure. How do you know if you have a failure-friendly environment, would you say? And part two to that is, if you do, how do you keep that? Yet, like, when is it too many failures that it's like, okay, this is like, okay, it's too many, like there's too many, you know what I'm saying?
No, totally. So I'm going to kind of answer that second one first. I think, like, I'm going to just speak as a, if you're a team, right? And if you've got team members, you have to be willing, Dana, Fierce has the decision tree. That's part of the delegation model. What the decision tree is really all about is what's the rate that you can tolerate somebody making a mistake and it not costing the team too much. Okay. So you want to be able to gauge that. And as that person, then you realize, okay, they've got that, then you can release a little bit more autonomy and a little bit more authority, a little bit more responsibility. I think too often we try to give people the whole thing, and they really screw it up. And then it's like, then we don't want to delegate, or we don't want to create that kind of environment. So there's a book, it's not on Audible, and it's one of the Brian Tracy series, but it's called Manager Meets the Monkey. It is a great book about talking exactly about how to create that type of environment.
Yeah.
Because as leaders, what we tend to do is we tend not to give people stuff because we're afraid they're going to screw it up. So one of the ways for you to then identify, do I have a failure friendly environment, is am I willing to let people take a risk? Am I willing to allow them to say, I just want you to try it. I want you to just see what you're able to do. And do they come to you and just say, you know what, I screwed up? That would be another indication. Do they tell you when they mess up? And be able to then just say, okay, and what did you learn from that? What was the experience that you need to learn? What's the lesson that you need to learn?
You have to choose in advance what your attitude will be towards them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Did that help, Dana, answer your question?
Yes, that helped a ton. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. All right. So speaking of environment, Terry.
Coming from a hay farmer who just baled my hay, literally 5x5s, if anybody knows what that means. Anyway, environment. You know, I'm a believer, so I believe what you sow, you shall reap. However, there's a little bit more to that. I'm not trying to change the Bible or anything about that, but how many of you guys have grown anything? Garden, plants, landscaping, that kind of thing. Somebody's grown something. How many of you like have put a seed in the ground and tried to grow something? I don't do so well at that, except for with hay, and we let David handle all that, right? So what I want to say about that, it's not just what you sow, you will reap. It's about the formula of what you do to get the plant to where you want it to be. So, you know, this seems really simple, and it's so true. Most of you have heard that your business is going to be as great as the 5 people you surround yourself. Your life is going to be as great as the 5 people that you surround yourself. And all of us need 5 key people, whether it's an accountant, a spiritual advisor, a coach, a psychologist, whatever that is, a therapist. We know that we've got to surround ourselves and put these people in our environment. The other thing that may infect your environment is your location. Like, I can plant wheat in Oklahoma because it's hot. Not as hot as Lubbock, Texas, although today it's 102. I can plant wheat here and it doesn't need a lot of water, right? So the location from which you plant yourself is critical. The market center that you're working in, the team that you're working with, the leaders that you've put in your life that you learn from every week. And most of those people should be doing as much as you or more in the area of their expertise so that you can learn from them. So your environment matters. You've got to have the right ground to be in, the right fertilizer. You've got to have rain. Somebody's going to be raining on you. Somebody might even have to thunderstorm on you just a little bit, or maybe even be a tornado that comes through and wipes you out so that you can pick up the pieces and put it all back together again in a better way. You need the sun. So you need those people in your life that give you energy. We could do a whole session on energy. We need people in our lives that prune us. They snip us back to the joint at the places that we need to be snipped back at and help us. Only though, if we have respect for them. You can never prune somebody, just FYI, if you have not earned respect first. Totally. Dana, you and I talked about this a few weeks ago. And so what is different about that in your life? Like, how is your environment? Goes back to values. You select the environment you're going to be in based on your values. You select the people in your life based on your values. Now, if we tie this together, how do your values affect your environment? Have you chosen the right places to be, the right people to be around? Okay. If it's not set up for success, what needs to change?
All right. Culture matters. I know we talk a lot about culture inside Keller Williams, and I want to take a little bit different look at it. I want you to take values times your behavior. That equals culture. Values times behavior equals culture. Culture has a powerful impact on performance. It defines what do you want to be known for. it shouldn't be just a mission statement or a vision statement. It's not just what people read about who you are. They should be able to feel it and experience it. There's 4 healthy components of culture. The first one is curiosity. As a leader, you need to be willing to be a student, not always the expert. You need to be willing to have a mindset that anyone and everyone is someone that you can learn from. I think it's important to remember that everybody is fighting a battle that you probably know nothing about. And I think it's easy to place judgment, and we just have to remember they're fighting their own battle. I found this interesting. On average, kids ask about 125 questions a day. I might have some that ask more than that. And on average, the average adult asks 6. Now, as a coach, I'm not in the average category, okay, because I'm always asking questions. Yet I want you to think about that. And so I like to say, we want to have a childlike curiosity, and where we're asking a bunch of questions about someone, and not in a judgmental, and not the why questions. Why'd you do that? A great way and to ask that, and I know as a parent and grandparent, oftentimes that becomes the question, well, why did you do that? And an alternative to that's a more powerful question, and one that doesn't create as much defense, is to simply say, what were you attempting to achieve? That way you don't get the defensiveness that why questions often lead to. The second component of a healthy culture is humility. Don't take credit for everything. In fact, ask, who can you give credit to? Because people love to work for people that give them credit. You need to be able to take a chance on people. Think about individuals. I want you to think right now, who is someone that took a chance on you in your past in a time where you didn't deserve it? Chances are it might be the reason that you're here today is because they took a chance on you. Basically, it's because of somebody else, the reason why you are where you are. They took that chance on you. Your legacy isn't about what you accomplish. It's about what others accomplish because of you. Authenticity is the third component of a healthy culture. The thing about authenticity is that it doesn't guarantee success, but without it, it will guarantee your failure. It's from our friend John Maxwell. It's been a couple of months ago. I was in this shop and I saw this quote by Coco Chanel, and it kind of made me giggle. And then I just loved it. And the quote was, if you want to be original, be ready to be copied. I don't know. I kind of like that. And then finally, feedback. The fourth component of a healthy culture is to have feedback. If you really want to create excellence, you've got to create that environment that is rich with feedback. What Terry was just talking to you guys about in the environment, all of those components are feedback. If you don't water a plant enough, it starts to wilt. If a plant gets too much sun, it starts to get a little yellow. If it needs some minerals, it will turn a certain way. That's feedback. And we need to create those environments that are rich with feedback. I want you to think about, do you know what it's like to be on the other side of you? Ask people that you work with or live with, how do I get better? And have the kind of culture that is interested in giving feedback consistently, not just when it's time for annual reviews. I'll be honest with you. I don't like annual reviews. And part of it is because I don't ever think you're being evaluated for what you've accomplished for the entire year. It's usually what you've done for the last 30 days. And I don't know, there was a couple of times I got reviews that my 30 days prior to that were probably my worst 30 days. Leaders that are not open to feedback becomes people that you begin to question. You need to do the little things like they're the big things. And as leaders, you may think that you don't have time to give feedback. Everyone's busy. I know that. And it goes back to the values and that you make time for the things that are important. And culture is important. So the question for you on Culture Matters is, what are you known for as a leader?
You may not know the answer to that, so you may have to ask the people around you. I'm gonna, with permission, because I've been watching the time just to make sure we don't go over and allow for questions, but going back to just quickly on environment, there's something that I think is important that I didn't cover. I skipped over it purposely for time, but you can choose what is best for your day by booking out what is best for you. Because only you know when your energy is at its at its highest. Like, I was a great recruiter in the morning because I'm a morning person, right? You can book your day out by what's best for you most times on the things that really matter. So I wanted to go back. And the other thing too is the piece of rest. When we till a field, right, we till up wheat, we got to till it and let it rest. Mm-hmm. Because it can't be good for the next planting if it doesn't rest. And if y'all don't know that about farming, it's the truth. You've got to till it up and rest it, because you might be putting something else in there too. So don't leave rest out. Now, discipline, this is going to be my last one, and this is one of my favorites. So I want you to write down, there's good discipline, there's bad discipline. Discipline is just not a word that means it's all good. Discipline, you can put yourself into habits of discipline that you thought might be good, that in turn turns in to be a little challenging. But there's a quote from Kobe Bryant that you guys have probably heard, I'm the best because I don't get bored with the basics. We can tie most all success back to basics. Mm-hmm. If you're a real estate agent, I know Gary Keller gets bored saying it, but the basics are dialing, lead generation. We can get bored with it, but it's something that we can't leave out. And Kobe Bryant said he was the best because he didn't get bored with it. Why did he not get bored with it? Because he had to reframe it. And this is what I want you to do with discipline. In fact, in discipline helps us find what usually we say balance, but I will challenge us to think that maybe discipline just helps us get a rhythm. Mm-hmm. And I use this example because Debbie's traveled with me a lot, which means we stay in the same room sometimes, or we share the same kitchen in an Airbnb or whatever. And because of this coaching world that I'm in and how I don't move around much, I'm a real kind of exercise freak and health freak that I can take to the other extremes. But at the end of the day, I have a weird routine in the morning. I get up and the first thing I do is drink hot lemon water. There's a reason for that, right? And then I don't drink coffee to get me going. Like, caffeine is not the thing that should get me motivated in the morning. So I don't rely on caffeine. So I have this series of things I do in the morning before I even have my first cup of coffee. And if they get out of order, I get a little freaky. Like, I get a little on edge because I know it works and it's part of my rhythm and I want it to stay the same. I stretch every morning, regardless of if I'm going to the gym or working out. We all have these things we do in our life. And those good disciplines can eke over into a bad area in our life, which can almost look like addictive behavior if we're not careful. It can keep you being so disciplined, can keep you from fun. It can keep you from spontaneity. It can steal that from other people in your life because you have become so disciplined. Yet we need discipline in our life, in our world, in order to get us where we need to go. Our calendar is an example of discipline. Mm-hmm. So we have to create disciplines around our growth plan. So whatever it is we see ourselves in the future, then we create a growth plan around that. Then we need to create a discipline or a habit around reviewing that growth plan and checking off on how we're going to get there. This is why our company is so built on GPS or 411s, whatever it is you use to look at to move you forward. Discipline's critical. And it usually starts with a decision that you're going to make in your mind. something that you've learned that you know is going to get you to the next step. And sometimes for a while, we need to be just engulfed in discipline until we get over a hump. As we go into the last quarter of this year, there's going to be some disciplines that everybody's going to have to create. Not that it's bad. We need to be so disciplined that we get our unfair share of what's going on in the market and in the world, because we've created the kind of discipline that's going to take us ahead of others. So discipline can be good, usually is. It can also be bad if we take it to the other end of it, other end of the spectrum. So knowing what we've talked about up until this point, now we're going to end this part with discipline, my part with discipline. Where might you need more? Where might you need to ease up a little bit so that you can take a breath and enjoy, and possibly take that rest that I talked about in your environment? And honestly, rest is a discipline. So where do you need more?
So in closing today, really, we want you to become today who you intend to be tomorrow. This isn't about being the perfect leader. It's about doing the little things that make you 1% better than you were yesterday. And you cannot compare yourself to others. I want you to look at it this way. Popcorn is prepared in the same pot, the same heat, the same oil, and yet the kernels don't all pop at the same time. Your turn to pop will come. So 2 things to remember is to take care of your thoughts when you're alone, and take care of your words when you're with others, because your words matter.
I think there's a podcast on that.
I think there might be. Might be. All right.
There you go. I was going to say, I think, don't we have a screen on that? Yeah.
Yeah, I thought we had another one on our, well, Matters of Influence, our podcast.
It was on the one we used in Oklahoma City.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. Matters of Influence. We have a podcast that words matter. So there you go.
Thank you.
Oh, and popcorn, it may be in a bag for those of you that are not old enough to know we used to pop it on the stove.
Yes.
In oil.
In oil. That's right. A little bit of butter made the best popcorn ever. So I
My
know we've
daddy-
got a few minutes. If anybody has any questions, happy to field those if you've got questions.
This was so great. Y'all are number one, y'all are a hoot. And number two, I took so many notes. I mean, I had to get another piece of paper so I could have 3 pieces of paper now. Any questions? Anybody have any questions? Did you guys could we hear, just to honor Debbie and Terrie, could we in 2 minutes just hear a couple of ahas or takeaways
That'd
that
be great.
you guys had? It would be awesome.
I'd love you to fill the chat up with one. I mean, talk, yes, but start filling the chat up. Make me feel better. Come on.
Yeah.
I like the question about asking, do you know what it's like to be on the other side of you?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Agreed. I was going to say the same thing. That and the don't wear the failure. It's not an outfit. I love that.
Yeah, that was good. Lisa
Those
said
are mic drops.
value plus behavior equals culture. Yeah. I loved the Kobe quote. I've heard that before, but it's such a good reminder. I'm the best because I don't get bored with the basics. And we just heard this week on the top leader call, I think it was Mark King, somebody said that all the top agents that he's interviewing are saying they're just getting back to basics, like that is the thing. Super good. Angie said, sure the white space in your calendars to
Mhm.
think and take care of your time. Yeah, I love
Mhm.
that. Do my people tell me when they mess up, or do they try to hide it? Rachel, that was one I wrote down big time too. Yeah. Yeah, Andrea, I'm so glad you were on. That's great. We need to do it again because there's so much to digest, Dawn. Yes, totally agree. Great reminder that we need pruning, and it works best when the person pruning us has earned our respect. Yep, that's a huge, huge one. You're growing when you're checking up on yourself. That was good. Yep, that was great. Oh, yes, and their podcast. Yes. Share your podcast one more time so everybody can go to that.
Yes, Matters of Influence.
Matters of Influence is the name of their podcast. You should absolutely check it out. Awesome. All right, you guys.
Thanks
Thank
for the opportunity
Perfect.
and for having us
Yeah.
on. And,
Thank you all so much. We
Yeah.
might, Dawn might be right. We might have to have a part 2 after people digest. Oh, Rachel, thank you. Abby is off today. So, well, she's not off. She's working in Columbus on site, and she's normally the one that fills the chat. So thank you. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right,
Perfect.
you
You're
guys.
welcome.
Bye.
Our
Take
honor.
care. Have an amazing day.
Ladies.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Great day.